Welcome to the Flicks Forum podcast with Jesse, Heater and MJ. This week we are looking at Netflix's 34th film, the 2017 war drama Sandcastle. It's directed by Fernando Coimbra. It stars Nicholas Hoult, Logan Marshall Green, Henry Cavill, Glenn Powell, Bo Knapp, Neil Brown Jr. and Tommy Flanagan. Hello.
Hey, mate. Very good introduction, Jesse.
How you doing?
Very good.
This is a pretty long cast list again. So.
I was thinking that, but I'm like, you know what? They're all pretty long.
They are. Yeah.
Are you going to set some sort of rule in place? Like, this is a point now. I get it when you're talking about next week's film and you haven't seen the film.
Yes.
Now you've seen the film.
You didn't.
Do you want to just cut it down to like who?
I feel like
guys.
No.
I feel like they are all the main people.
This is probably a bad example, actually.
Horrible example.
Yeah, because there actually are a lot of quite important characters in this.
Well, yeah, yes, okay. We'll see how we go. I'll think about that for next week, right? We'll see how we go.
I'll keep that in the back of my mind. But very well done.
So, we always kick off our show with a thing that we call Fast Flicks, where we go around and do a quick little summary of the film or our thoughts on the film. So, Heater, go for it.
All right. During the Iraq War, a small team of American soldiers are sent to an Iraqi village to fix their water supply that was destroyed by American forces. The team are met with a mixed reception and matters quickly escalate from the locals who don't want them there.
Yeah, that's the plot. Good. MJ?
It's a thoughtful war drama that tries to put you in the shoes of what it's like to be on the front line. From the friendships to the victims and the boredom to the loss, it's 360-degree view on this whole experience.
Good, all right. And I've gone, a group of US military personnel work towards restoring water to a community during the 2003 Iraqi conflict.
Specific.
Very specific.
Do they say it's 2003 in the film?
They sure do. There's a couple of
they do talk.
text on the screen with 2003 March, whatever it is, months.
Oh, that's right, because it starts when he breaks his hand at the start, and then you figure out how long's gone past.
All right, so
should we do a spoiler alert?
Yeah, spoiler alert.
If you haven't seen the movie Sandcastle and you'd like to see it, please look away now. No, please watch it before you listen to us, because we are going to go through and spoil it.
Just press pause and come back.
Yeah, come back in 2 hours.
I think hopefully if you're listening to us, you'd know that we're probably going to ruin the movie.
But if you just enjoy the dissection of film and listening to our voices, then please continue.
Yes. All right, so we like to have a look at anything that we've learnt about a film or anything we've seen about the development of the film, how it was made. Anyone want to kick us off?
I actually haven't checked this. This is just off the top of my head. Is this the third war film that we've done as a Netflix original film behind?
This is so Beast of No Nation and The Siege of Jeddah.
Yeah, there was not another one, was there?
No.
So
This is the third.
Nearly 1 in 10.
Yeah.
It's a good ratio. I like it.
So the movie is based on true events and the experiences of the film's writer, Chris Rosner, during the Iraq War.
Based loosely.
Very loosely,
On his experience. Yeah.
So he said he was inspired to write the screenplay for the film when he watched Platoon, Oliver Stone's Platoon, while he was in Iraq. So
what a great movie.
Imagine being in war and you're like sitting there with your army mates just sitting around on TV watching Platoon. Going, let's do this.
Jack yourselves up.
Jeez, that'd be good.
And then him to have the presence of mind to be like, I'm going to write a movie about war.
Crazy. Anything else that we saw?
Filmed in Jordan?
Yeah. I thoroughly liked the location for this film.
There were some good sets.
That was one of the things at the start I was like, I really want to see where they filmed this because it felt real.
It did, and I think probably a lot of that comes to do with the fact that Chris Rosner not only wrote the film based on his own experiences, he was also executive producer, I believe. So he had a pretty big part to play in the way this film was made up, the way it looked, and I think one of the things that I really liked about the film is that there were times where they were talking about nothing in particular and there was no fighting or war or nothing was really going on, but you were still part of that world and into that world. And I think one of the quotes I found from Chris Rosner is that he says, sometimes you fight and die and turn the ship just 1 degree, and that is what war is. So yeah, things like a Platoon or any of the Black Hawk Down or all those big war films, a lot of stuff happens in those films, but sometimes, I mean, majority of probably people's experience at war is I did a lot of stuff that meant a lot to me, but in the big scheme of things, didn't really do anything. So I liked that. I liked that look on it, and that obviously comes from the fact that it's written by a bloke who was there.
Yeah. The director, so his second feature film. Fernando Cumbra. Is that what his name is? Yep. Second feature, he had directed a few episodes of Narcos, though.
I did see that.
One of my favourite shows. He's done 4 episodes of that, so that was exciting to see.
And his first film was called A Wolf at the Door, and it was a Brazilian film. So, and obviously Narcos focuses a lot on the
drug cartels out in South America
as well. So this is obviously one set completely away from South American surroundings, I guess.
Yeah.
The other thing I saw, so Glenn Powell is that loud, proud sort of...
Chutsky,
yes.
Sergeant Chutsky.
We'll probably talk about Chutsky a little bit later on, but he put on 20 pounds in 3 weeks to play this role.
It's impressive.
It's huge.
It's very impressive.
Pounds and kilos. What's
About 3 pounds to a kilo, I think.
3 pounds to a kilo?
Roughly 3.5 pounds to a kilo, maybe.
It's a lot of meat that he would have eaten, or chicken, or whatever you do.
So he put on 6 or 7 kilos in 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
That's nuts.
To all the listeners, just don't hold me to that conversion. I think it's around that, but don't hold me to it.
And the other thing was Luke Evans was
Yeah.
cast, but dropped out and was replaced by Logan Marshall Green. So,
Yeah, he was cast as Sergeant Harper.
yeah. Anything else that you saw about this film?
The script was on the 2012 blacklist of screenplays.
Did see that, yeah.
I think we haven't seen a blacklist script for a while, but so that was back in 2012, and then the principal photography of the film began late 2015, and then it was May 2016 when Netflix acquired the rights, which was then distributed on Netflix in April 2017.
Yeah, Netflix got the rights in May 2016.
And so then,
So almost a year before releasing it?
But I wonder how much of the film was complete.
Yeah, it was complete, yeah.
So they reportedly paid around 13 mil for the rights for this. So this was probably a bigger film for Netflix to pick up. And I guess when you've got Nicholas Hoult as the star, he's probably one
Henry
of the
Cavill involved as well.
Henry Cavill, probably some of the bigger names that they've had on Netflix to this date.
Yeah. The critical consensus was
Not great.
not great. No, not 44% on Rotten Tomatoes, but only on 16 reviews.
I think the audience score on there was 42% as well.
Yep, only on 500, a bit over 500.
Yeah, not many people had seen.
Yeah, and even on IMDb, 6.3 on a bit over 15,000.
Yeah.
15,000's heaps though.
On IMDb it is, yeah.
Compare that to the bloody 40 you get on Rotten Tomatoes.
Then going to Letterboxd as well, it was 2.9 out of 5 from 2,700 ratings. So, what higher score on IMDb compared to the other ones? Even like a Letterboxd that works out to like a 5.8.
It's not a bad score.
Yeah, not too bad.
Not too
Yeah,
bad.
it's about average. So.
I often think, like, I know we're talking about Rotten Tomatoes, and like it's got such good cred in the industry, and I guess that's a lot of it's because it's film reviewers.
It's for the popular people. Like, it's for the populace, like that. You know, you can chuck it on the front of a poster and be like certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. That's all it is, really.
But have a look at IMDb's numbers. Everyone in the world uses IMDb, whether they use it for ratings or not. But
couldn't care less about a Rotten Tomatoes score on a movie. Like
this is funny.
I'd much prefer to look at an IMDb or a Letterboxd rating.
And I reckon that there needs to be some sort of rule too. That if it's only got 16 reviews, how can you? I don't get how you can come up with a percentage.
The audience, I think, rating is also the formula for that. I don't think really reflects it well enough as well.
That might be something I'll look up this week.
Because I think for an audience to like it, they have to give it like 3.5 stars out of 5. So for like a 42% approval rating, that means that 42% give it a 3.5 out of 5. Like
that's a high score.
A 3 star is still a good movie.
Yeah,
like
bloody oath.
If I like movies, and if I give a movie a 3 star, that's still a good movie. So I mean that wouldn't, like, if I was doing a 3 star movie, that wouldn't be counted in this audience score.
Yeah.
3.5 is very high.
True. All right, so should we sort of get back to the film a little bit, I guess?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Until we
stop bagging Rotten Tomatoes.
All those people who are getting annoyed at home, it's 9 kilos. 20 pounds is 9 kilos. And people are going, why are they even saying this? Why don't they just look it up? Yeah, I looked it up. It's 9 kilos. It's all right.
All right, good. So
I was just a little bit off.
It's a good effort.
Before we get into it a little bit more, what are our early thoughts on the film? What are some things? Hader, give us your early thoughts.
Hader is our resident war film.
Well, yeah. So literally, I wanted to know the first few minutes. I was like, okay, Hader's in, and then after the first 10 minutes, I wasn't too sure. So I want to know.
So yeah, I said I love my war movies, and Jesse, you are right. The first few minutes I was in, and then I fell a bit out as the movie went on. It was I thought the movie was okay. It's just a bit slow and boring for my liking.
That is what I liked about it.
Yeah,
So that's why I liked the fact that this film was about what I think of like as the futility of war. There's so much things that happen in this war situation where nothing happens. And one thing that the director does really well is he really lingers on a lot of these shots. What?
No, I'm looking forward to talking a bit later on.
No, it makes you expect that something's going to happen, right? You're in a war situation where you're walking in dangerous territory, and for some reason this shot is hanging on for longer than it should be. You're like, oh, he's going to get shot. Well, something's going to happen here, and he did that really well. And I think it probably would replicate what it must feel like to be in those quieter moments of war and that sort of always on edge.
So I guess
feeling.
I was kind of the opposite of that, and that all those kind of long drawn out scenes. I was just kind of like, nah, this isn't for me.
I thought you would.
I mean, I still thought the movie was okay.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, sorry.
I didn't think it was bad. But it's just, I mean, when I say I love war movies, I love what we talked about before, the Black Hawk Downs, the Platoon, Saving Private Ryan. I love those ones. So this one was just a bit slow and meh for me.
This was the Hurt Locker type war
Yes,
movie, which I would say.
Which I must say, I actually really do like the Hurt Locker though.
Hurt Locker was good for a whole host of reasons.
That's a great movie. Yeah. What do you think, Jesse?
The first few minutes or so, I was like, okay, this could be all right.
You're in with me?
I was in with you, and I was like, okay, Heath's gonna love this.
Hang on, just to refresh me, what was the first few minutes?
So the first few minutes is when Nicholas Hoult goes and smashes his hand in. So he's got kind of the voiceover, smashes his hand in, and then No One Knows starts playing. And I'm like, yeah, all right, I'm in. This is good. This is
Queen
good.
of the Stone Age song.
Yeah,
and when
no
that
one
came
knows,
in, I was like, oh, sweet, okay, this is
like,
going to be upbeat.
He just smashed his hand in a door and no one knows he's playing. I'm like, yep, I'm in. This is good. Good start.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, and then 10 minutes go by and I'm like, okay, now I'm getting a little bit bored.
Yeah.
And then the first half hour, I was like, there's no action really. In the first half hour of the film, there was literally no action.
My argument almost was by the end there was too much action because I thought they were trying to say something, they were trying to tell a different sort of story.
Yeah, okay.
I found it really hard not to compare this to The Siege of Jadaville. Really hard.
So different.
Okay, so I don't know how I rephrase that, but maybe it's just because we're looking at this through the Netflix lens, but I felt like similar. You've got instead of Jamie Dornan, you've got your Henry Cavill's or your Logan Marshall Greens. You've got these bigger sort of actors, whereas this film probably could have been more. I don't know, if you cast people that aren't as well known, maybe it's more impactful rather than these people that you're familiar with those faces.
In that sense, maybe, yeah. The films are very different, though.
I'm not trying to compare them plot-wise or anything like that, but I don't know, just that whole, we'll get to it.
Yeah,
we'll keep discussing.
I guess we can almost talk about characters.
Yeah,
which
go
is
for
probably a really good segue. Well, I was going to talk about Nicholas Hoult, but let's start with Henry Cavill's character, just because you kind of mentioned that.
Captain Syverson.
So,
firstly, good beard. Good beard.
He was refreshingly unrecognisable in this Henry Cavill. I'm not saying like you couldn't look at his face and tell that it was him. I've just never seen him play that sort of character. Like Superman and like Man from U.N.C.L.E., he's this clean-cut, polite, really savvy guy. This guy was dishevelled and aggressive and rude, and I loved it. And you talk about them being a big movie star in it. It didn't feel like Henry Cavill was a big movie star in this, and that was nice.
I know we're talking about characters, but I thought he was horrible. I thought his accent was really bad.
Accent was interesting. Definitely interesting accent.
I get he's a Pom. Everyone knows he's a Pom, but to me that accent was horrible, and I just thought it was just chucked in there. It was like a nothing role.
But it was. That's the thing. It almost was a nothing role. He comes in
didn't have that big part.
45 minutes in, and he's
for ages,
super minor, even when he's in it.
He's got kind of a few one-liners that are a bit funny here and there, and that's it. I guess I really liked him. I wanted a lot more of him.
I wasn't fast.
I kind of finished the movie going, I wish I had more scenes with Captain Syverson and Henry Cavill, because I really enjoyed him in the movie.
But I don't think the character.
It probably wasn't needed more. It wasn't needed more, but I just enjoyed him on screen.
He made such an impact on me. In all my notes, I just wrote Superman the whole time because I didn't even pick up on his name.
You should watch the movie more closely then.
I was watching it pretty closely.
Syverson.
But I agree. The character itself was, and that's what I kind of like, that he took this role that. He was an absolute meat axe. I know we all know he's big, but he is.
He was huge.
But yeah, I just enjoyed the fact that he didn't feel like a big movie star, and that was refreshing to me. But Nicholas Hoult, on the other hand, and let's talk about Private Matt Oka as a character. This is a pretty significant character journey. and it starts from the very start where you mentioned how he shoves his hand into to break his hand in the car door because he doesn't want to be there. He's isolated, he's lonely, and by the end of the film, he's basically breaking rank to try and stay and fight.
Yeah.
And I like that sort of message that's probably the result of what war can do to a man and what it can bring out of a man, from a guy who didn't want to be there and was trying to do what he could to get out of there to you can't take me out of this place. So kudos on quite a nice character story there.
Like we spoke about before, the opening where he smashes his hand in the door, that was the most I felt from the whole film. That was the only time that I felt from him in that whole film. The rest of it, I was just like, I didn't believe him.
Yeah, I'm kind of similar to you in that I kind of enjoyed that. Yeah, and he smashed his hand in the door, and I really kind of liked that development that he gets to the end, and he's basically fighting. He wants to say that I thought that was a really good development of how he got there, but just kind of throughout the film, I guess, kind of the way I viewed the film, I was just still a bit meh about him throughout the film, like the character. Like the start and end scenes with him, he was great, but then just throughout, I was a lot more attached to Logan Marshall Green's character than I was to his character.
So I had the opposite, because there were all these really prolonged shots just on his face, trying to show the emotion of where he was at, what he's thinking, like he's reflecting, whatever he's doing. And to me, because I didn't care about him as a character, it did my head in.
I tend to agree the emotion side of things. I didn't feel a huge emotional connection to him, but his initial reactions to war probably would reflect what mine would be if I was in that situation.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And therefore he kind of became like my tour guide for the film. So there was a relatability to him, whether it was emotional resonance. I don't think he quite got there with me, but I felt that Nicholas Hoult as an actor slowly warmed into the role once the character sort of got more climatized with the situation, took more responsibility, and he actually got a chance to shine a little bit. And I actually just enjoyed Matt Oka, and I enjoyed following him, and he felt like a real leading man, even though the emotion might not have been there from me, but it was something that he kept me in this whole film. And I guess I was looking at it through that lens of the futility of war. Yeah, but also like I picked up really early that this movie is going to be about some of the quiet times of war and dealing with smaller things that you don't actually see on the screen, and I enjoyed that. And as I said, when things started getting a bit hot and heavy, I was like, whoa, where's this going? I wasn't expecting this.
I couldn't deal with Burton. So Burton's this character. The first time Burton's he's played by Bo Knapp. Or Knapp.
Yeah.
So I thought that the setup for him early on was that he was gonna die or get really injured really early, because the first time you meet him, it's like, oh, he's got anger management issues, and then the next thing you hear about him, there's these characters having a discussion about I think it was on the rooftop. Oka was talking to Harper, and he's like, his dad, talks about there's a bullet for everyone. I'm like, this is obvious that he's going to cop a bullet or he's going to cop something. And then when they're getting ready in the truck, him and Enzo, they're like having this chat. Oh, we're there for each other. It was like this big set off to say, hey, it's gonna.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I just didn't.
So that was actually one of my favourite lines.
Really?
Talking about
My bulletproof line.
My bullet is coming for me. And I think to me that told a nice story of the different mindsets of war.
Yep.
So you've got guys who are doing whatever they can to stay alive and stay safe, and he's just like, dude, if my time comes, my time comes. And that was like perfectly juxtaposed when they're all ready to go this mission where they didn't have to go, but they chose to go because they felt obliged to go. And he's just like, whatever, let's do it. And if I die, I die. And Oka's just kind of like, well, I kind of want to not be here.
Yeah.
I like that difference.
This is a very good different reading of a film.
Don't get me wrong, I didn't love this film.
Yeah.
It was just some nice things.
So what do you think of the Sergeant Harper then? Logan Marshall Green's character? Because I really liked him. I thought he was really good. He was probably my favourite character in terms of the story and following him. I liked his arc. I liked the stuff kind of with you can tell that he's battling with things back home and he's trying to lead these guys. I liked his character a lot.
Yeah, I thought he was a good leader, and they showed that he was a good leader through his relationships that he
showed
had.
a lot of empathy towards Madoka as well, which was really good because
Initially, no one else did.
yeah, and Madoka needed it because he was struggling with being there.
I'd like that, but on the other hand, I didn't like the way that they dealt with his relationship with home as well.
Yeah,
And it's sort of like there were 2 calls that he made, and the first one he gets through the voicemail or whatever to his fiance, and then the second one he's obviously upset because he's crying, and Oka walks in on him, sort of sits there, and I thought this was the perfect opportunity to expand on that a little bit.
I agree. It went nowhere, didn't it?
Yeah, they were sitting there on the rooftop together, and it's a perfect chance for Oka to just say to him, "Hey, what's going on home?" And they just left it, and I was if you're building this for this character of Harper and you want to feel for him and you want to be like, you're a great leader, you need to have those mellow parts where he explains, hey, I do have some stuff going on somewhere else as well, and they just didn't explore it.
That's fair.
I agree, and I think that's probably the one thing. So I did relate to Oka. I think Sergeant Harper felt really safe and really reliable, and that's cool, but he didn't feel real. And that's probably definitely the one thing that was missing. And I wonder if they kind of did that in a sense that at the end when Madoka gets sent home and he doesn't want to go home, and Sergeant Harper gets sent off to his next mission effectively.
Yeah.
And this is the guy that probably needs to go home and sort his personal life out.
exactly.
And no, that's not how war works.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I could think of, but I definitely think it was a missed opportunity.
Yeah, because that could have even built further onto that, him needing to go home, is you have an understanding as to what's actually happening at home.
Yeah. I guess it's more they were concentrating on Madoka's story, not his story. He was more kind of a side one, so I guess that kind of lost out because they wanted to focus more on how Madoka was going.
The best way that I can think about or talk about this is, so there's that scene where Harper gives Oka, Oka's got no plates for his armor.
Scene.
So he's like, here, I have one of mine, sort of thing. And it's like, you got to make that right choice. Do you put it on your chest or on your back?
Yeah.
Didn't matter in the end.
Nah.
It didn't really matter, and that's a bit like.
But this
lot
is
of these-
every little decision they have to make. They got to think about.
I get that, but
Are you more to get shot in the front or the back?
yeah, and a more impactful film will give you resolution to those little things
Yeah.
that you show throughout.
But yeah,
I don't know.
It is a different film doing that though. Like even the scene, I guess it did have a resolution, but that scene where they pull over the guy in the truck with his daughter. Yeah, it was a girl, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a girl.
And the whole time you're just like, something's going to happen, and then nothing happened. And you're kind of like, these guys must be dealing with this stuff every single day. And I know it gets the thing where this guy kind of obviously tells them what their route is and things like that. But there's so many little things like that where you're like, what do they have to deal with? And, you think you have a bad day at work, like they have an okay day at work and they've still got a chance of being killed. And that's kind of the thing that I kept top of mind throughout it, which makes it a very different movie to maybe what you were expecting or hoping as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I got one more character, the teacher.
Yep.
So the teacher was a character who I was like, okay, this guy is trying to do the right thing. He's hopeful. And again, like the way they set him up, there's the one scene where Harper and Oka go to the school to deliver them some water, and they just have these really awkward edits where the camera goes on the face of the wife or whoever she was.
Too obvious.
And it's so obvious that something's going to happen to him because he's obviously got someone that cares for him. It's like, yeah, so you knew that something was going to happen to him.
He was never making it in that movie.
Too obvious that, because the whole thing was don't trust the Americans.
Yeah, and I would have I probably would have, when we get that shot of his body burnt upside down, that probably would have been more impactful, and I would have been more devastated if I wasn't expecting it. Yeah,
That's fair.
Yeah. Any other characters?
I think we've gone through.
Go on. So
I like Sergeant Chutsky too. Just a quick
that guy
chip in there.
He was beefed up.
He was.
Massively.
It's kind of the guy that at the start you didn't really like, but by the end of it you're like, I really like this guy.
Yeah, he was.
And when he died, you're like,
sad when he died.
sucks.
I was like, oh man, this guy was a dick at the start, and you kind of kept going. You're like, oh no, he's pretty cool. Of course he died.
Well, that was.
Damn.
We could probably venture into scenes now. That was one of my favourite scenes. Was after he died, when they're sitting in their bunks, and they're actually for the first, because they're also macho and there's a lot of bravado around them, but they're being really honest about what they should or shouldn't do. And Oka, I like the idea that Oka talks about the fight happening before they were even there with this water. Like, even though we do something, these two towns or whatever are going to keep fighting.
The Sunnis and the Shiites are talking about, they've just got this tension no matter what.
And it's probably the only time you see Harper, show some minerals and sort of branch out a little bit, where he's just like, no, this is our job. And the idea that you have tonight to be angry or sad, but then you go back to work tomorrow.
Yeah.
That scene really, really struck a chord with me, because this is off the back of one person dying, and the amount of people that would be dying and the amount of death and loss they'd have to deal with. That would just be an ongoing kind of event of questioning yourself. Well, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? Well, we're not actually fixing anything. I think they captured it all really well, and that was probably the most emotion I felt in the film.
And that's another scene where, the Sergeant Harper, that's another thing on his bat. He's like, he's still looking out for his men, saying, "You got this night to debrief, relax," and yeah,
there's a nice notion that
was a really good scene. It was really good. I even liked the lead up to it where Chutsky is killed. It was a really intense kind of under the gunfire scene. He goes and Oak is supposed to provide him with the cover, but then he gets distracted by the other guy shooting. Just that whole scene, and then you kind of see like Oka's face is kind of like knowing was like, I was supposed to provide cover for him. Is it my fault he's dead? Kind of thing. I thought that whole the firefight scene of that was really intense and really good.
It starts off with that sort of that shot, the headshot that the guy on the rooftop gets, and then and even that, when Chutsky is like killed, they continue peppering with the body.
They keep shooting the body.
That was good.
Yeah, and that's obviously the first time we see loss in a gunfight, because there's been a few little gunfights here and there where nothing's happened.
Yeah,
and that's the first time you're like, whoa, okay, they're killing people now.
Yeah.
Right?
Anything else that stood out?
I've actually got a few. We spoke about the opening scene. That was really good. I kind of liked as well, so just after the doctor checks out his hand, the doctor was actually my IMDb from Spectral. He makes an appearance as the doctor.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah.
Hang on.
What was he in Spectral?
He was Gonzalo Mendez. He's kind of the leader who gets killed in that first fight with the ghosts.
Like the before the credits scene.
No, sorry. The leader with James Badge Dale.
When they all go
the guy
in.
that stands up for James Badge Dale and gets killed.
In the truck.
Him, yeah. He was the doctor from Adoka with his cast.
Struth.
Yeah. So after that, they kind of like sits down and all the guys are kind of like just waiting around. The guy's doing weights, the guy's watching TV. I kind of like that as just showing like, these guys are just kind of have to pass the time just waiting to go to war. And then kind of when they get in there, that first kind of scene when they're going up the building and they're shooting on the roof and the airstrike comes in, I thought that looked really cool for me.
The airstrike scene was the only other one that I had. And I like that it sets up the difference between Oka's character and the other soldiers.
Yeah.
Like he's petrified up there, right?
Yeah.
And is he with Chutsky?
Yeah.
And Chutsky's just
Chutsky's
woo!
Yeah, he's loving it.
And just the whole journey of them getting up the building was pretty cool.
Yeah, kind of as they're going up and you see them going up like that. Really cool.
That's when you guys said you liked the start. I thought you might have meant after that bit, but obviously it lost you a little bit before then.
It lost me a tiny bit before them, and then it got me back, and then I kind of lost a bit. But I mean, there was a couple of other, like the gunfire scenes were good. I'm not actually sure what scene I was talking about here, but might be when the Chutsky got killed or when they're in the tank. But I thought like you could really see the fear on the soldiers' faces.
Oh, yeah.
Like they looked terrified, and I really believe that they were absolutely terrified. Like a lot of war movies, they're trying to be the macho guys, they're just shooting and killing. These soldiers were terrified, and you could really see.
They felt almost unequipped to be in that position.
These guys were absolutely terrified, and I thought that was really good to see the fear on them. That was really cool. And kind of that last firefight, where Henry Cavill goes in, they're shooting the guys, their car's getting blown up. You got kind of the chopper has to come in and be evacuating them. That whole sequence was really cool for me, which then led into, I think, so after they've got out of the chopper and they've evacuated them, they've got the captured Iraqi. And Oak is like...
runs at him.
He runs at him and he starts beating up. His emotions, I guess, from all of it have just gotten out of control. He can't handle it. He's just laying into this guy out of, anger and frustration.
He's changed at that point.
Yeah.
He's a changed
man.
Yeah,
so I really like seeing kind of his emotions just blow over and go at the guy.
It's probably a really good point you make, MJ. That could be seen as that signal, that change in him.
Yeah.
Because prior to that, that's probably a really good turning point.
And it feels real. It feels like it's not a stretch that he's done that.
I liked... like I think I said a little bit earlier on, so the locations were great, and some of the early tracking scenes of following the soldiers running through areas, and they're throwing those color gas bomb sort of things to light. I thought that was really nicely made, nicely shot. Thought that was good. When they finally get to the location where they've got to fix these pipes, there were a couple of these nice little shots where they showed on one end of the pipe was a US soldier and on the other end of the pipe was like an Iraqi local. And I thought that was nice, sort of showing them working together when so much of this film is about the distrust between both sides. Like, you know, they're always like, oh, you know, children carry bombs, or the Iraqis like, we get killed if we work with Americans. So it was these nice little interrupting little shots of them actually working together. I liked that. I thought
That's
that was
what
good.
they needed for success, didn't they? They needed everyone to come together.
Towards the end, that shot of the guy going to the car to get the esky.
Again, too obvious.
No. I didn't mind that because
okay.
that actually got me. Like, I had a bit of a jump when that explosion went off.
Okay.
That explosion looked cool.
Yeah, that really, like, I was like, okay, bang. It's kind of like, I was off put by the guy at the esky. I'm like, why? Then they made so many references to the food and stuff and like getting lunch and stuff. But yeah, that got me. I thought that was
good. Yeah.
Yeah, that actually did get me.
I knew that was happening.
We spoke about the hand scene at the start where he smashes the hand on purpose, and I was really glad that he addressed it at the end. I know it was obvious why he'd done it, but I was really happy that he sat down with Harper at the end and just discussed what had happened. I thought that was a nice little wrap up of his character and what he'd done. I thought that was good. And so Oka's had this thing where he's told, you're going home. He's walking down the staircase in this compound, and he stops on the staircase and he looks at this broken piano. This piano that's just sitting there on the tilt, and just the camera just hovered, and I really like it. It was just this symbolism of, you know, the US leaving something broken and not fixing it. And that, in my mind, I was like, that is awesome symbolism. Like, just this broken piano. For me, there was no other reason why you just stop there and look at that piano. And I was like, he was leaving because he was so upset they couldn't fix this water situation. And his piano, he's leaving. This piano's still broken. He's leaving. The pipes are still broken. He didn't really achieve much out of this.
It's a great call.
Yeah.
So I liked that.
Yeah, that was good. I also liked, a couple of the Henry Cavill's funny lines. Just, I guess, because I also was kind of like, you know, this movie was dragging a bit for me. It was a bit dull. So I get just when they first meet him and he tells how he taught the translator to play poker, but he's a prodigy. Yeah. That was good. And when they're talking with the sheik and he just gets in his face, he's like, I hope he gets shot and killed. And turns to the translator, don't translate that. Just a couple of funny moments that kind of picked me up a little bit when I was needing it.
He kept a straight face and smiled at him and said, I hope he gets shot and killed.
Well, I think we did a good translation there. Left a few expletives in MJ, anything else?
No, we've covered on mine as well, yeah.
All right, so what are some things that didn't stand out to us, or some things that we want to forget?
I got
Nothing?
No.
So my main dislike for this movie was I thought a lot of the scenes just went on for too long, which I think is what you liked about the movie.
I think that was a deliberate.
Absolutely deliberate, but it just didn't. I mean, so I think like you were talking about how nothing was happening at the start. So they arrive at the village at the 28-minute mark of the film. And besides that little cool, maybe 5-minute firefight a bit in the building, I was kind of like, what really happened in that first half hour that it's taken us 28 minutes to get here? And then just a couple of the scenes kind of when they're first giving the locals water and Sergeant Harper's on the top of the truck asking for volunteers and the translator transing. Like, it was a decent scene, but it just felt like it just went on for a bit too long. And the conversation with the sheik as well, that we just talk about that funny line, that scene as well, I just felt like they were just talking maybe a bit too long. Let's just come a bit shorter. So I probably didn't dislike any real scenes. It was more just a few of them just, for me, just went on for a little bit too long. Let's cut them a bit short.
Yep, and I think that's what was good about it, because that's what they were trying to do and trying to show you. Because you know what, that was boring, and it's probably boring for them being there.
Exactly, yeah, that's probably what they were showing. It's just, as a viewer for me, it wasn't my kind of thing.
Don't know why I was so into that though.
What about you, Jesse?
The continuous references to like sex and women and food, like I get that they're frustrated soldiers and they're trying to show how they actually feel on the battlefield, but I thought it just went on and on and on. Like, literally, like, you know, the soldier that named the tank Pokey because it's his porn star name. And, you know, they're just these lines like, we're balls deep in Iraq, and there's a few, you know, there's they find the porn stash at the palace when they get there. You know, they make fun of a guy for being with a girl with polio. There's just all these little lines that I'm just like, yeah, I get it, and I get it's a blokey sort of thing, but you can still tell the story without putting them in there. And the same with like the food, like, you know, they was talking about penne food and garlic fries and chicken, and I get that's what they think about women and food, because that's all you want is a good meal and a good woman. But yeah, I don't know. I just like, we get the point. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, fair enough.
At the start, they're like talking about, you know, we don't want to destroy any mosques because it's a bad PR thing. I was like, you're giving them way too much credit. They're going in, apart from Oka, they're all going in their gun-ho, like. Don't know, just some lines of dialogue that didn't get me. And at the start, so Oka, like, obviously for his hand, the doctor gives him these pills for the painkillers, the meds, and then we see another scene where he takes them again, and then that was it. It was like
Yeah.
another one of those things where I was like, you could look at the dependency that some soldiers suffer as well by continuing this throughout with his character.
How much time passes, do you think, in this film?
It was like 3 months, I think. It was like March to June. Or
Yeah, I think it's a few months for them to go from that kind of when he's a doctor to seeing the village.
Okay.
I think it's in
getting
March on the screen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's definitely like probably about 3 months, I think.
Okay.
Another line that so Oka was talking about his dad going AWOL, and then he's like, he went to get a Coke and never came back, so that's why I don't drink Pepsi. I was like, oh,
That's why
it was just one of those corny lines of dialogue.
Yeah,
It
that
just
was a
like-
bit.
Yeah, that was a bit
Yeah.
out of nowhere.
There's another thing that had no resolution for me. Was that they made this big deal about keeping the lights off for the snipers because they'll shoot or something. I'm like the whole time, oh yeah, cool. Maybe we're going to see them be attacked because someone accidentally puts the light on or something. But it's like, nah,
Yeah, okay.
nothing happens with that either. When they give the water out to the locals, this mellow music just like dropped in, and it was like all this mushy sort of like they're doing such a good thing for these people by giving them water. They're the reason that the people needed the water.
But it's such a futile job. Like they're trying to. It's almost like carrying a bloody bucket with a hole in it. Like
Well, the tank did have
Yeah,
one.
take it a few holes at times.
They felt like you're right. That was like the biggest thing they were doing, and in the big scheme of things, like what are they doing? Like
Yeah.
I like that.
The teacher, so his brother rocks up to help with the pipes, and they have this drawn out scene where he's got these bags, and the soldiers want to check the bags, and they don't know what's going on, and they're worried that he might be going to attack them or something. And then the next scene, you learn he speaks English. You could have just told him at the thing, "I've got no explosive. Check my bag."
Yeah, it's a trust issue though.
Yeah.
Ah,
That's what I mean. All these little things that they have to go
Yeah.
through. And that's the story they were trying to tell. Which, like,
he wouldn't be going there unless he
Yeah.
was trusting him in the first place. So you could have just told him he spoke English at the
So,
start.
was the director given a slight dig maybe at the American education system by the guy's amazement that he had to pay for college in America? He was
Yeah,
like,
true.
Yeah.
That was nice,
It's
yeah.
free. Like,
Yeah.
of course it's free. Why? He's like, what? You have to pay for it?
yeah,
True.
that's good. I like that.
Now
Not free in Australia either.
It's not. No.
There was the scene in the end where they've got Oka's in the tank and he's sort of shooting around while everyone else is sort of in the houses and stuff. I just found that scene really, really bad. Really bad. You did not see the enemy one little bit or the attackers and just felt fake.
Did he see the enemy though?
He probably didn't see the
That's
enemy.
what they
And,
wanted you to think.
Yeah, I get that. But to me, it felt like we're on a back lot of a studio somewhere and he's just
Okay.
shooting around. It just didn't seem real.
He felt completely out of his depth in war, which he was supposed to,
Yeah.
I guess.
And the last thing, like the end scene where Oka's being sent home, I just thought the acting was so bad and was really awkward. I sat there and I was cringing because I was like, it just didn't settle.
When
When having the argument.
Yeah,
major,
when they walked in.
whatever his name is.
Yeah, when he's trying to argue
Tommy
why he should
Flanagan.
stay. Yeah, I was just like, oh, didn't believe it. Anyway, that was me. All right, what was the film trying to say? What are some themes? What are some ideas? I think there's lots.
Yeah.
Start us off then.
No, you go, Hater. I want to hear what you got to say. No, MJ, give us something.
For
Come on,
me-
give us-
You're the themes guy, man.
For me, it was about purpose and how much what they're actually doing actually shifts the dial, and if it doesn't, as a soldier, are you okay with that? And Oka, by the end of it, wasn't okay with that. He was there for the wrong reasons initially, but then he realised that he could have made a difference, realised that he wasn't making a difference, and he didn't like that. Whereas everyone else was kind of there just to do their job, almost clock in and then clock out. So that was an interesting one. I can imagine a lot of soldiers dealing with that idea of purpose and what are we doing here and is it worthwhile? And I don't think the film tries to answer that. I think it just says this is something that people go through when they're there.
Yeah. Nice little, yeah, good pickup.
I just thought it showed a bit more kind of maybe than other war movies do on the different kind of horrors of war. So you get a lot of the war movies showing, like it's about, you could die, your mate's dying and things like that. But this also showed, this just an innocent village has lost their water and suddenly that town is now, is in deep trouble because of a war that's going on that probably a lot of them aren't really involved in. So there's kind of that,
Absolutely.
that horror and that kind of, thing from war as well, that it's not just kind of the guys you're fighting and stuff. It can affect all these other innocent people when you're not trying to.
I think there was a scene where they were talking about, it's like, they said we're scared, and it was like both sides are scared. It's not just soldiers that are scared, so that fits in perfectly with that, yeah. And, it's another this issue of like people fighting a war that's not necessarily theirs.
Yeah, absolutely.
I tried to, and I felt this through the scenery and the shots of the scenery. They tried to portray Iraq as a beautiful place. and often war films don't necessarily show the locations as a nice place. They show it as like a scary sort of
like run down,
barren
when
sort
the
of
buildings
place.
are falling apart and things like that.
And it topped it off like at the end when they're driving that car, and one of the soldiers goes, as they're driving, he said, it's a beautiful, beautiful country as they're just staring at them. I liked that. I thought, yes, you've got this horrible war going on, but they still try to show, hey, this is a nice place.
I have everything that happens in this film through the lens of the writer, who's a guy who's been there.
Yep.
And that's what makes me think that that's important, like that no one knows that.
One of my favourite themes that I like to talk about is water.
Oh no! Well, this water plays quite a big
about
part.
water, yeah.
I couldn't not talk about water.
Yep.
So there's quite a few scenes where Oak is in front of this mirror and there's no water. He's wiping himself. He's wiping himself with these cloths. He's not using the water. So he's missing what those that he's helping is missing too. They don't have water. He doesn't have the water. And there's this scene where the tank gets shot up and then the soldiers go, oh, we're going to have a shower. It's like our first chance for a shower. And they get under there and they'll have a bit of a smile. And it's like, okay, there's these little respites, and there's respites where they take water to the kids or they finally get a tank through and people get water. So there are these times, but overall the big thing's still missing. And I just thought it was really impactful at the end when they go back to the compound, and the first thing he sort of does is gets in the shower.
Don't they give him a bottle of water?
He gets a bottle of water, and
then go downstairs. He gets a bottle of water,
and then he gets in the shower and he turns the taps on, then he turns them off, then he turns them back on, and then there's a shot just of the drain and the water just going down the drain, and it's like he's getting what he wanted at the start, which was to go home, and this water is symbolising he's going home, but then there's still these people that I just thought that was a nice little combination.
I kind of read that last scene of him in the shower as he understands the importance of water here, and he's just watching
it disappear
them
as well.
Just use it like willy nilly.
Yeah,
and
it's 100% right as well. It's 100% right as well.
They don't have to be.
I just only connected it with the other thing, so I was like, why have we seen him 3 times in front of this mirror where he's just wiping himself clean rather than using the water? I thought that was good. And there's these things, help us out and we'll help you sort of thing. And there's all this fear that they're going to leave, and that's what happens.
Well, they got bombed.
They did, yeah. And there's always that thing too in a war movie. It's that brotherhood too, like following orders, working together. Yeah.
And I also kind of noted the dealing with grief as well, which is obvious in every war film. But I liked the way that they dealt with it in this.
There's some nice shots of like the box of the belongings, and they're just staring at that box.
Yeah. That whole scene. That was, as I said, that was my favourite scene. Really got me.
All right, we're good to talk about what we took away from it.
On that note, I actually maybe feel what you guys didn't feel, but I think there was a real emotional subtlety to it, and it wasn't obvious. But it tried as hard as it could, I suppose, to feel like that real war experience. There was a lot of nothing. There was a lot of laborious work, keeping themselves busy. But it didn't stop me as an audience member being on edge all the time with those lingering shots that we spoke about. Every time a shot lingers in a film, you think it's for a reason, because you've trained yourself after watching so many movies that why are we still seeing this? Something's going to happen. And he did this really well so often where I was like, it's lingering here. And it's a war film, like something's going to pop up or blow up or shoot him. So you never knew what to trust and how to trust it. And you never, I like that quote again, when the bullet's coming for you. Like, I think they did a really good job of that, because it was definitely slow, I get that, but it built up nicely enough to the fact that there was a bit of action, there was a bit of violence, and you did fear for their lives. And all in all, I was on edge enough to get something out of it. So I also think actually that as an audience, you want Oka to go home. I felt like all along, like, I want to get this guy out of here. He doesn't seem like he should be there. And even when he is like, I need to stay here, I need to do this, I was like, dude, just go home. That's how I felt. And I actually think as a result, we get our payoff as an audience. They send him home, even though he didn't want to go home. Like, I don't care, man. I need you to get out of there. So whether it was a safe payoff, it still felt like a payoff for me.
Yeah, I enjoyed the soundtrack quite a bit in this film as well. I thought throughout, apart from the down times where I thought it was a little bit off, I thought the upbeat sort of music was good.
Yeah, I would have kind of in more the intense, like the battle scenes and things like that.
And this probably would have been pretty good in the cinema.
Yeah, I think so. I think most war movies are, when you've got kind of the battles and the firefight scenes and things like that, they would always do really well in a cinema.
Yeah. So, Heater, you already told us your IMDb.
No, that was my IMDb from Spectral.
Oh, from Spectral.
Yeah.
Oh, you just remembered him.
I just remembered I saw him.
The beauty of the IMDb rule is that they just stick.
I saw him in
once
this.
you get them once, they stick.
Who was,
No,
who
my
was your
IMDb,
IMDb?
my IMDb in this was Corporal Enzo, played by Neil Brown Jr. He was the guy who was worried his girlfriend had polio.
Yep.
Because I just kind of see him and I'm like, oh, I've seen you in so many things before. So I just wanted to kind of look him up. He plays Clifford Danner in Suits, kind of maybe maybe 4 episodes. That was where I remembered him from. But then looking through his IMDb, he's been in The Walking Dead and Fast and the Furious. So I was like, yeah, I've seen you in
Definitely
quite a
seen
few
him.
things. Yeah.
Who is he in Walking Dead?
A zombie.
Uncredited.
Wasn't enough for me to write it down. It was more his Suits role, which I definitely remember him for.
MJ?
Mine's a bit of a cop out because I actually IMDb'd Logan Marshall Green a few weeks ago when I watched Spider-Man: Homecoming because he was the first Shocker in the Shocker.
Yeah,
in
that's
that.
right,
So he
yeah.
was in that, and I was like, oh, who's that dude? I know him. And then I remembered that he's Trey Atwood.
In OC.
Trey Atwood in OC.
Trey Atwood.
And more recently, he's in Upgrade, that 2018 film directed by
film.
Lee Winnell. Yeah.
Filmed in Melbourne.
Yeah, so he's super recognisable. I feel like he's having a bit of a renaissance in his career the last couple of years since the Trey Atwood days.
Since Trey.
Because it was pretty grim in between that.
I looked up Sergeant Burton, dude. The Bo. His name's Bo. No.
Yeah, that name's familiar, Bo Knapp.
He was in Southpaw, and I've seen Southpaw quite a few
okay,
times.
yeah,
He was
yeah.
one of the he wasn't a big character. His name was John. He was one of the guys in the background, Jake Gyllenhaal's character.
Hype character.
okay.
Yeah, one of those hype sort of guys. Yeah, so he was in it a couple of times. So yeah,
Is that all?
that was all I could remember. Like I was like, oh bang!
that's all,
When I saw
yeah.
the screenshot of him, I'm like, oh, I remember you.
Yeah. That's a great movie.
It is a very good movie. All right, any questions? Anything you want to
No,
ask?
I didn't, sorry.
I don't actually know. Do you?
So they fixed the bullet holes in the tank. There's that scene where they fixed the bullet holes. I was worried about what about the bullets in the actual tank? Like, would that contaminate the water? It's just a question, like a sciencey sort of question. I don't know.
Desperate for water, they'll drink bullets.
Yeah, no, I know, but I'm
they'll
just
drink
thinking-
lead
just
water
thinking,
anyway.
like, yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually not
would have
sure.
to, surely.
Like, I know they don't need a shower, but would they go in and get them out? Or yeah, I don't know. That was just something I was thinking.
Yeah, I don't know.
Hey, if you guys didn't like the lingering scenes, would you want a scene where they're going in fishing out the bullets?
I would not have liked that scene, I don't think.
Would not have surprised me if they actually filmed it.
Yeah, it's on the cutting room floor.
The other thing I had was so the title. We haven't really talked about the title. I liked the idea of the title. So Sandcastle. So I had a couple of thoughts as to what it was trying to say with the title. So the first one I was like, okay, so they've got their compound's this palace in the middle of nowhere, and it's like their castle in the middle of the sand. And I was like thinking a little bit more, and like it can even go a little bit deeper, and it'd be like Iraq is America's toy in the sand, and they're building their own sandcastle in the sand, and they're shaping it how they want to shape it.
That's a good one. I like that.
I don't know.
Halfway through the film,
Yeah.
I thought this film was going to be a lot more of the nothing that you do at war.
Yeah.
Was going to be about the futility and sitting there in the sand, just like building sandcastles.
Sandcastles,
Like
yeah.
that was the notion. But that kind of changed, and I've gone away from that. I like
I like that,
theory.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I was just
I like
like,
that, Jesse.
I sort of changed. I'm thinking, okay, what's that? Yeah. Anyway, All right, let's sort of wrap this up, I guess, and have a chat about our ratings. We give our films a rating out of 5 each week, and then we add them up together to give an average for our discussion. So, yeah, MJ. Yeah, go for it.
I enjoyed this more than I thought I would, and as I've said numerous times, I got to get inside the character of Matt Oka, more or less relate to his experiences. I was always waiting for things to happen, and quite often they didn't, but in a sense that apprehension created what was a really proper feel of war to me. My only criticism is that I did get a little bit bored like you guys, and it did lack that certain emotional punch, but it was still a good watch, and it's 3 stars for me.
Nice. I thought it had some good moments, and a lot of the cinematography I thought was really lovely, and you got this feeling of this, isolated country that you're unfamiliar with, out them, like, none of us have been to Iraq, sort of thing. So I liked that it brought that alive, even though it was shot in Jordan. And unlike MJ's like of those
Hey, you're allowed
long
to.
scenes,
Yeah.
I thought this film needed a really good edit. If this was a tight 90 minutes, I could have really enjoyed it a lot more. It was like they had all this footage and they thought they needed to use it all, and they're like, we don't want to cut any of it. So it didn't stand out for the way that lots of war films do for me. So I'm giving it a 2 out of 5.
I can understand now when my first comment was, so it had these lingering shots that I liked. And that's why you were like, huh?
I was like, I'm totally picked this differently. Heater.
So I thought this film was okay. I did enjoy one of the scenes, particularly kind of the battle and firefight scenes that looked really cool. And whilst kind of talking about the scenes that MJ liked, I do appreciate what the director was trying to do in terms of kind of the downtime at war. That it just wasn't really to my liking, was a bit slow and boring for me. But the film was okay. I give it a 2.5 out of 5.
All right, so what does that give us as an average out of 5?
Gives us an average of 2.5.
2.5. Good.
That's right, yeah.
So each week we chuck a post up on social media with a question. I've taken the question this week it was like the opening voiceover. So the question is, can a war story be true without shame attached to it?
Did you write that down immediately and go, cool, I've got the question sorted for the week?
I did. I was like, wow, that's a pretty good question. Like,
Yeah.
Can you tell a war story where someone comes home and are happy with everything they've done?
It'd be very hard to, wouldn't it?
Very, very hard, I think.
There's always shame somewhere.
Yeah. So that'll be on our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram profiles. We are at Flix Forum. We are on Spotify. We're on Apple Podcasts, Podbean, wherever you can find good podcasts. Search for Flix Forum.
Yeah.
Give us a positive rating if you can. Next week, we're looking at the 2016 comedy Tramps. It's directed by Adam Leon, and it stars Callum Turner and Grace Van Patten. There you go. That's the cast list.
Bang.
Is that better for you?
2.
I don't know, I haven't watched it
Quick
yet.
editing
Much
there.
better.
Only 2. All right, so take the time to watch the film, and then you can get on board and have a listen to our spoiler full episode next week.
Did you say
Sounds good.
2016?
2016.
Yeah, 2016. Next one
This
is.
is a bit like
Yeah.
Imperial Dreams, where
Yeah.
sort of, Netflix have held onto it for a little bit.
It's
There you
true.
go.
As usual.
We'll see you next week.
Yep, we'll see everyone next
You will.
week.
Good chat, boys.
All right.
See ya.